quarantine restrictions. So most colleges have decided to do some form of virtual. Many of them have gone completely virtual. Some of them have gone a little bit in person, but mostly virtual. My daughter's school is one of the ones that went 100% virtual. And so for the first 2 weeks of school, she was home with me, but plotting to move to her school, to the location where her school is, which is in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So that's why I'm here. So we finally got her out here a couple weeks later.
Yay.
Yeah. So where are you?
That's
Oh, by
exciting.
the way, I'm Jen. It's Talk About It Tuesday. Hi, everybody. I'm here with Amy Gray, our amazing artist for our influencer ball in both locations, both Alexandria and in Falls Church. Amy, where are you?
I am in somewhere near Alexandria in my art studio.
Oh my gosh. That's great.
With all my stuff.
With all your stuff.
Yeah, there you go. Here, there's the toolbox right behind me.
Is that a harp?
Yes.
Do you play the harp?
I bought a harp in 2001 and played for about 5 years. And then I went to grad school and I stopped practicing.
I think we met when you were in grad school. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. We met when you were in grad school.
Yes. I went to grad school the first time and for a master's of theological studies. And then I had a wedding and we met sometime in the year of my wedding. That is not my wedding dress.
This is a Halloween costume that Amy put together, and it was how I discovered that Amy was an artist. Amy, tell everybody what this costume means.
So this costume was made in the fall of 2016. And I was trying to think of something I could wear to the seminary, because by that point I was working at the seminary. And that I could wear to the seminary, that would be fun. And I was really stressed because my second master's degree was due 4 days after the election.
Oh my God. Wow.
And someone came to me about 2 weeks, said, so are you going to wear, like 2 weeks before Halloween, are you going to wear a costume for Halloween? And I was like, man, I need to blow off some steam. And what's the scariest thing I could think of? And I decided not to go political. And I looked around my studio space and saw a stack about trying to think backwards, yay thick. And it was copies and printouts of the drafts of my thesis. I thought, that's the scariest thing I can think of. And so I made this crazy dress. That's all pieces of paper from my thesis taped together. This was like the duct tape and masking tape. It's all paper and tape.
I loved it. You walked in and said, I am the scariest thing I can think of. I'm my master's thesis. And I said, you made that dress? And you got so humble, like, yeah, I made this. And I'm looking at you and at the dress and I'm like, lady, you're an artist. And you're like, I know. Yeah. So that was fun to find out.
That was fun. That dress was a hoot. I referred to it as it was the real name of the costume it was an existential crisis.
I remember that.
Working on a thesis, you're so vulnerable and terrified. And it doesn't matter, especially making it into the dress, it doesn't matter what it looks like to everyone else. It's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
So here's this beautiful thing that's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was so much fun. But
fun
yeah,
stuff.
I mean, it was fun to find out you were an artist, because fast forward a few years later, when I bought a second location, and for a few months at the second location, we kind of kept the name Bikram Yoga Alexandria in Falls Church, but Michael kept looking at me in the face and saying, I can't do this anymore. I can't call this name. We have to come up with a new name. So part of coming up with a new name is coming up with a new image. And so we stuck with that first, and we found artists. We found a graphic artist that we connected with, and we send her all these logos that other yoga studios and fitness places were using, and we asked her to class. And then my team voted on the new name, Bikram Yoga Alliance. And I gave her all that information. And about a week later, she came back with a few different choices. And this was the one we picked, which is a combination of the lotus flower with fire. And after we started printing that on things, I imagine you got a little inspired by looking at it. Um, you know,
I was like, okay, this is fun, new look. But what was also happening in the background was, here's this wall, and you'd
yes,
had it as a chalk wall for a while, and I was
long
like,
time.
I want to draw on the wall.
Amy
I want to draw on the
wanted to
wall.
play.
Exactly. And for a while, oh, who was it that I finally helped draw? He wanted to draw, and his
Caesar.
name just, Caesar was drawing setting something up with him. I'm like, can I help?
Yep.
Please. And that was fun doing the wall with Caesar, and we did it a couple times.
You did.
And then as you started talking about, well, we're going to do something with a new logo, and there's these influencer walls, and so I started kind of thinking about what could we do, and we got to use, obviously you want to have the logo on here, and what can we do that will be fun with the logo? And I remember distinctly standing by the front curved desk in Alexandria with Michael about, okay, we're going to have the logo, and then we're going to have some phrase that people interact with.
Right.
That's a very Bikram phrase.
Yeah, Michael is an advocate for the Bikram phrasing. It always comes out of us as teachers because we spend so much time with Bikram,
right,
that we'll say these phrases. But Michael is like, let's get that into our story. So so you two were sort of brainstorming back and forth with these different ideas. So how did you how did you guys pick that one?
I don't remember what exactly was going on, but it felt right. I mean, love your sweat, but then how do you respond? If this is supposed to be interactive, of all the things we kicked around, this felt, if you want people to have something to respond with it felt like something that people could put their thought into, and that felt like functionally the right phrase.
So then it came
for what we wanted.
So then it all came together, and you went back to your
my little space,
your vortex of spirituality, and you put together this this idea of getting a wall with paper templates and transferring with chalk.
So that's actually classic art school training of how.
Cool.
That's something back in the old days before you used color copies or did it all in the computer. You would you'd work out your design, and then you would transfer it. Now, normally it would be with graphite powder instead of chalk, but in this case, chalk was the right thing. So I laid it all out in the computer and worked it all out. This is where everything's going to be. And then, we printed these huge templates so I could transfer it. And so in this picture, I am transferring the design from the large templates. And so I have to go in and trace everything from what I've already done.
Right.
To get the chalk on the wall and then go back and paint in the chalk lines.
Yeah.
So I wasn't winging it. And, a lot of what I've been doing has been sort of this large public art situation. And one of the things that's always intriguing to me is how much it exposes the physicality of art making. Because unless you do stuff regularly, most people are completely unaware of how much physicality is involved in a lot of
labor.
It. And that's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
you were saying that you
could
have just printed it off and wrapped it. We could have just gone to a graphic printer and printed it off, but that's not so much the joy of the process.
So, and I I'm good with computers. I can do the technical stuff, and it's the best way to get text laid out is on a computer anyway. But it's fun to paint on a wall. There's and it's maybe a little transgressive feeling because you don't usually get to do that. But on the other hand, you've got to get up on you've got to get way up high at the top, and you got to get down at the bottom, and it's very physical. And that's one thing that I've been talking. It's one of the things I talk about a lot in various contexts that I work in is this embodied nature of the practice of making. And as I've spoke with people as they saw me working there in Alexandria. Love that picture.
Go ahead. It's a great picture.
That art making is so similar to yoga in that it's a practice, and we just don't think of it that way. but you still have to show up at the page. You do have to put the hours in, and people will immediately with art making go to talent. But so much of this, what you're seeing there is practiced skill, learned, practiced skill that has to be done. You have to show up and do it regularly, and those skills will degrade if you don't do them regularly. Kind of like the heart, in that you don't play for 10 years because you graduated and had a wedding. I am starting from scratch again with the harp in the last several months. It'll come back. It will be, and it doesn't matter, because for me, this, as well as the art making, is about the embodied practice of doing the thing. It's not about making the music. It's not about making the picture.
Yeah, I mean, we're always going to be challenged, right? We're always going to have excuses that keep us from doing the things that make us feel joyful. And and your practice in art, your practice in yoga, it's a joyful process. Like, it's not as though you go into the yoga room to do yoga so that you are like, that day you're a yogi. You go in because you love every single minute of it, even if you don't like certain minutes of it. You like you like yourself for having done it. So, and I know the same thing with is with drawing, that if you sit down and draw every day, that your hand is practiced with it, your mind, your hand-eye coordination are practiced with it. But sometimes people will walk up to you and say, I could never do that.
Yeah.
And that you can hear echoing in their head that that's their excuse for not doing it.
So many people learn that they couldn't do as kids. I mean, there is a developmental point where they get frustrated because they are not able yet to draw and have it look like what they see. And that's where a lot of people stop. You know, but to say, you know, I can't draw like Da Vinci is like me coming to yoga and saying, I can't do this. I'm not flexible, and I can't do this like Bikram.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, silly.
It really is. It's like no one would come to yoga if that was what they needed to come through the door.
Oh gosh, here's our wall over in Falls Church. And because we were closed for so long, and because we weren't all really sure about what the safety precautions in place were going to really work, it took a while for us to coordinate getting you back into the space. But I will tell you, the students asked me almost every single class that I taught. Someone would ask me about the wall, about the artist, and wanting the wall to be finished, you know, wanting to connect with this art, with what inspired the art, which was a yogi. And so it's so wonderful that the wall is underway and finished now. Yeah. Oh, I know. Talk about consuming, because we're consumers. Americans are consumers. It's inevitable. It is who we are. We want stuff coming at us all the time. We want options. We want to feed. We want to feast on options. But you were saying earlier that we want to consume art, but what we really need to do. Go ahead.
Yeah, that we take it in, and music, not just visual art, but music and these things. We observe it, so we take it in, but we've somehow lost the skills in enjoying the process of the making of. I mean, I don't have this harp with the idea of becoming a famous harper. I don't have this harp even with much of an idea about performing with it, because it's not about that for me. We are and then the other piece is, oh, you've got this great skill, you've got to monetize it. So it again becomes, this thing has to go into that consumer model, because we don't know what to do with things that don't fit in that model. So a practice of art making doesn't buy you anything except joy.
Your soul.
Except use joy.
Joy.
You know, so it's, you know, I find I'm operating out of a space that a lot of people don't talk about. Even in the context of teaching at the seminary, it was really hard to get people to engage through the idea of making.
Well, I used to draw all the time, and it's been years since I picked up my pencil because I had too many other things to do. And I remember when when we were designing the second logo that I tried my own hand at it and I gave up because
Yeah.
I said, oh, I just need a professional. But I wish I had said, and I know now I can, I wish I had kind of said, I just am enjoying drawing. I don't need to do this for a job. Somebody else gets paid to do this.
Right.
So, because I remembered how stressful it is to get started at drawing because you do feel
Yeah.
frustrated with the skills that are lost, but how thoroughly enjoyable it is to draw, to move your hand across, to move a pencil across a piece of paper and see what your brain thought a rabbit was or a flower or I myself really like to draw hands.
Yeah. So he's got some.
Oh, here's Amy's website.
Okay. So what you're looking at is silver on a specialized black paper.
Okay.
It's little sheets of pieces of silver. So it's real silver. And the thing that's really marvelous about these is that they are not coated in any way. And these pieces are oxidizing.
Oh, okay.
So they don't look like that anymore. They've all changed colors. You can see on that one, it's got blue in the background.
How
and it's
cool.
tipped. Now more of it is changed. It's all changed colors since then.
Yeah, silver's very sensitive to oxygen.
Yeah. So one of the things that I spend a lot of time with is the idea of, it's the Japanese idea of paying attention to the beauty of decay. It is natural for things to change. And so all of these things are meditations on change. And so those are based on landscape, those particular things we're looking at. So yes, I work in a bunch of different weird contexts. These are small. Some others of them are really large. This piece that is on the left side of behind the navigation is actually a huge cut paper installation. Wow. If Michael goes to installations, clicks on installations and goes to the middle one. Actually, this is a much better. So this is all paper.
You remember about this tree with us?
Yeah.
That was the tree that inspired us to really work together.
Yeah. So this is in a little bit, this is part of my MFA, actually. The crazy tree. Yeah, that's part of the installation process, hanging it from the rafters in this little building.
That's beautiful.
So crazy things.
Oh my gosh. Like you said, it's piece by piece, it's day after day, it's showing up. It's trial and error, it's falling out.
Yeah. So. And this was and the other thing about this piece was it was installed. My MFA was remote and we would go for a week intensive and then do everything back in our home context. So on the last residency, I installed this before the residency started and it was only up for the week of residency.
Wow.
And then it went away. And that was another thing that I'm big on is impermanence.
Seize the moment.
Yeah. This is here, this is now, this is where we are. I'm not, it's disconnecting from the idea that everything has to be permanent, it's permanent and it's perfect and all those things that are so often superimposed over the arts. I'm like, it's not important.
Yeah. The whole process of practicing yoga is to discover the most important moment of your life is always now. Now is the truth. Now is where you are. Now is all you have. And enjoy it. And the process of joy is the discovering of the soul.
Exactly. So there's so much of what happens in this space that is similar to what happens in the room, a lot less hot. I did try to do the online yoga in this space.
Wow, really?
I had the chair moved out and I had the mat on the floor. This is the one room I have control over the temperature.
Okay.
I had a heater in here. I got it pretty good. But the problem was I did that first back bend. And I did that back bend and I was looking at that circular piece on the wall.
Right.
And it was like, oh, that's what's wrong with that piece. I need to fix that. And That's the problem, because it's not actually finished. It's just a hang in there. But this was an impossible place to stay in yoga brain.
That's why you need the studio.
I know. Well, the other thing with the studio, despite being an introvert and despite being very inclined, I'm a person who can go to a week-long silent retreat at a monastery and be happy as a clam, which I recommend if anyone ever wants to do that. The thing with yoga, the energy of the group, that's the hardest thing with COVID. Is it's so different. I know people are doing their home studios, and that's fantastic. But the thing of it, well, this is more like singing. This is more like choir. Is that in both those cases, the room is breathing together like one organism and moving together like one organism. And there's something really amazing about that piece of the practice.
It is. Bring me a little bit to tears. So I know there's something really powerful about it. I mean, it's one of the reasons why we say that the classes that we offer online, we've kind of shifted them into two groups. One is a video on demand, and one is live, practicing live. And those live classes, even if you're at home and you have made your little nest that you can not be thinking about art, thinking about yoga, you're with
my
the
bathroom's
teacher.
Just not big enough.
You're with the teacher, you're with those students in spirit. So if you really are nervous about coming back to the studio because of this terrible virus, you can join us live and hear the teacher's voice happening right then, talking to you, because that teacher knows you're there. And there's a group energy in the room that is it's immeasurable. Like as you were describing it, it's almost ineffable. Like you can't really put words to it because it's so powerful, but you can tap into that a little bit if you're practicing with us live. It's a little bit more challenging to practice on video on demand in that energy. However, you get to hear these awesome voices of people who care a lot about that experience and the yoga. And so I know that a lot of people are trying to make their livings by offering what they have virtually, but the physical spaces, they just need to stay there, because
they absolutely do.
Otherwise that real magic disappears. It's like they're like a little bit of a church. They're a sanctuary.
It is. It's very similar. Because there's, and when talk about not wanting to go too far down that road, but one of the things that is really challenging the churches, as I'm in conversation with those people, is because singing is supposed to be one of the things that really spreads it, that type of breathing. But people are like, but that's one of that congregational singing where, again, we're all breathing together and we're all one organism, is the most important part of worship.
I mean, it's what brings the spirituality back into dogma,
into the body.
So
it's a thing I'm thinking a lot about as I move forward as an artist outside of the context of the seminary, is how to grapple with this split of our world has changed dramatically due to COVID. And so much has gone to the online arena, and that's wonderful and powerful. And there's so much people can get from it. But if we let go of the real stuff, if we let go of the embodied pieces of our lives, we need to hold on to that tight. Because if everything we do is moderated by I'm touching this surface, how much of our human experience, I mean, I've got this thing that's in process right now. This is paper and thread. The tactile difference of this versus paintbrushes or scissors or any other thing I work with.
Or picking up your foot.
I missed
standing underneath. You. Pick up your foot. No, if you pick up your foot.
And also, frankly, the feeling of the sweat dripping into your ears because you're in that particular posture.
Oh yeah.
Or running up your nose. Or just laying there in savasana, feeling the sweat roll off of you as you breathe deeply and rest.
Yeah.
That doesn't come through this.
It doesn't. I mean, that device needs to push you into the studio spaces. And I think that's the powerful thing we should get from the virtual world, is that it's there to remind us that we're out here, and that when you can and when you're ready, come here so that we can connect in the physical, so that we can see, touch, smell, feel each other and the experience. And I mean, I know your website is, tell me what your website is again. A.E. Gray.
Yeah. A.E. Gray Studio.
aegraystudio.com. So go to that space, everybody, check it out, and then reach out to physical Amy and get some art, or get some connection to the artist. And for us, hey, if you're not ready to, there it is. If you're not ready to, that's Amy's email. If you're not ready to come back to the studio, we do have those live classes, but those live classes are really meant to tempt you back into the studio to join us where the real magic happens, right there on the mat with the studio, with the other students. And that rhythmic breathing is going to remind us all that we have a soul, and those souls are craving spiritual connection. Yeah. Thank you so much, Amy, for this time. Amy is our artist, our resident artist who painted our influencer wall. And I'm just beyond thrilled to have this time with you. Have a great one.
Thanks so much for having me.
That was amazing.
And safe travels back from Santa Fe.
Thank you so much.
All righty.